Hi there, Dave here with the first of two videos about debugging a Python program inside a PyCharm. And so in this video we're going to concentrate on the tools that we need and then getting our first debug session going. In the next video we'll talk about what we can do inside that debug session. So the key to success is having the right versions. So we have Python, the language, and PyCharm, the integrated environment. And so the right two versions, there could be lots of combinations that work. This video is not to talk about that. This video is to talk about when it does work. This is how it works. So the versions that I know work are the current version of Python and the current version of PyCharm. So we're talking about Python 3.5.1 and PyCharm Community Edition. That would be build 145.844 or close. So if you have those, you should download them. And then you should go ahead and install both of them. But not until you probably throw away the old versions. It's up to you if you want to try keeping the old ones. But what I usually do is I go to my control panel and I go to programs and I uninstall. So notice that I've uninstalled all of the versions of Python. And that's because I'm an old guy who's been beat up by having old other versions around of things. It's probably okay to have both versions. Same thing with PyCharm. But I'm talking about these two versions. And if you do that, then what you're going to do is download the project that we're going to talk about, and that project is the Fahrenheit to Celsius calculator. There was an early modularized version of a very simple calculator that we did, and we'll go ahead and use that. That'll work fine. And so I've downloaded that and unzipped it and open it up inside of PyCharm. And now we want to take a look at what's happening. So you can see that I've got it working here. What did I have to do? Well, this is exactly what I did. I went up to File and I went to Settings. There's two kinds of settings you have to change. You have to change the settings for the project, and you have to change the settings for the default. Now the default settings are what you're going to be using for settings the next time you make a project. It does not have to do with this project. Default settings are what am I going to do next time I make a new one? What are the settings going to be? These settings are the ones for the existing open project, and we want to change them both. They're the same thing in two different places. So if I go up here, I see that my project interpreter, the one that I'm going to use as the default, is 3.5.1. I could also use any of them that are dropped down in this box. And if I don't, notice I have two versions of 3.5.1, I guess, just to be sure. So I select one of those and make sure it's 3.5.1. And then I say apply and OK. And then I do exactly the same thing for the project itself. So I go back over to this time the settings, which are for the project, and I go over to the project interpreter and I make sure that it is 3.5.1 and not anything else that it could be. Like here's that invalid 3.4.3 that does not work. or anything in the 3.4 range. I did more experimentation than I'd like to talk about, maybe. So, this is what works. And so once we have that all set up, we can go ahead and start a debug session on this project. Now the way you start a debug session is right up here. You either run it or you run a debug session on the currently active file. Or you can right click and you can say run main procedure or debug main procedure. I like this one because it says exactly what it's going to do. And so if you run it in main or run it in debug, it's going to do exactly the same thing. The difference is that if you run it in debug, it's going to respond to instructions that you have that you've placed inside of this little alley, this little trough here. And it will run slower in debug mode. Otherwise, it's going to do exactly the same thing, but they are different interpreters. If you just run it, it's going to run much faster, but it won't pay attention to any of the little symbols that you might have over here that say, hey, stop here and let me walk through the code. Okay? So in the next video, we're going to talk about, well, when we're in debug mode, what do we do over here, and how do we walk through the code, and that kind of stuff. Take care.